Hello and welcome to Data Planet. I'm Emma Davis, and today's guest is Jack Markham, Chief Marketing Officer of Inside Real Estate. Welcome to the show, Jack.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Emma. Excited?
So, to provide some context for our conversation, can you start by telling me about Inside Real Estate, who your customers are, and what it is you do for them?
Yeah. Inside Real Estate is one of the largest tech companies in our space. So, we serve agents, brokers, teams. We have about a third of the industry that actually are on our platform. So, about 440,000 agents. Remax is probably one of our biggest clients, and really like some of the big enterprise mega brands that you see in real estate. We serve those enterprise clients and facilitate, their tech tools, marketing tools. I think that's really a main focus. And then obviously innovation as we get more into AI. How are we empowering some of our clients, agents, teams, and brokers with AI to drive more outcomes, which really, at the end of the day, is really conversations in our business, right? That's
Hmm.
that's that's really what our audience should be focused on. So yeah, that's a little bit about us. We've been around for quite some time, about 20 years in the space, maybe a little bit more. Um, I think our founder, Joe Skousen, is one of the few founders in this space that is a founder, but also CEO and running the business, and started out at his garage. So I think, what's nice about that is you have someone that's been in this space as a long time that has seen a lot of different changes, is just like our audience has in this business. And so being able to adapt and kind of see some of that, super powerful when you think about where innovation's going, tech, and where we need to be focused for our clients.
Yeah. And you've been in the tech sales, real estate, like not specifically in real estate tech, real estate sales and all that, but just looking at sort of your professional history, you have quite a bit of context around this as well.
Yeah, this is kind of I call it my home away from home. This has been the industry I've focused on for, you know, 15, a little over 15 years, maybe going on 17. I don't like to exactly date myself, Emma, but yeah, it's been a while. I've, I've, I've seen a lot of changes through this industry over that time, and I've had several different roles, which has been probably the most enlightening because I've got to do a lot of cool things and see different aspects of this industry, and I think that's really provided me kind of where I am now. Right, I have taken over the role at Chief Marketing Officer here at Inside Real Estate. That role really started in December.
Mhm.
This is a fairly new role for me, but what's really been fun is bringing all of my experience, whether it's been revenue, strategic growth, partnerships. Um, Packaging that all together into a CMO role and being able to drive the marketing team and the company a little different than maybe you would have in a traditional CMO. So it's been fun.
Yeah, yeah. And so that shift you mentioned in December, you went from EVP of strategic growth into that CMO role. Um, some people might have some imposter syndrome around like, I'm not a marketer, but really
What my wife said. That's what my wife said. That's so funny. You're not a
you?
marketing. I go, I know, but it's fine.
Thanks, sweetie. Aw, so sweet. Um, but I do think, what my company does is very growth, revenue oriented marketing. So to me, the idea of a CMO who oh, you're coming from revenue, you're coming from a growth focus, less of a content creative focus and, working your way to oh yeah, and then what are the outcomes? Sorry to all the creative content focused CMOs on the show. But to me, it makes a ton of sense. Not coming up from brand and communications, but what uh, what perspective are you bringing into that new CMO role that you're noticing is different from maybe what your predecessor in that role was focused on?
Yeah, I think it just looking at things a little different. And so, I think one of the things that the biggest impact is I can partner up a little different with sales and our chief revenue officer a little different because my background is so tied to almost CRO that him and I can really bounce ideas off each other, and he feels that I'm always on the same page with them because that is the lens I choose from, that I choose to look at things from, right? Is less about necessarily a marketing role, but this revenue role. And I think that, yeah, although that it is a little different from for my marketing team, right? But at the same time, I also need that expertise on that end because what I don't come with is that really deep marketing experience. And so what I have found is that was super valuable for me coming in and having that revenue lens where I can still focus on all the things that I've focused my whole career on. What's different is having a really kick butt team, quite honestly, that is experts in the other areas that I am not necessarily an expert on, and being able to lean on them, but also like being able to mentor and teach them the revenue and how does that come together and how does that tie. And I think like, yes, one, it's allowed us to move a lot faster, I think, on marketing side, but also the revenue side. But two, it gives me it's fun to mentor a little bit because I think that's a huge amount of growth, especially if you think about marketing professionals. And sometimes they don't get that to see that side or they don't get that type of expertise. And you think about their future, right? Being able to tie marketing and revenue and being able to think like a revenue or even like as a salesperson with a revenue or with a marketing expertise is super powerful. Like
Yeah, for
I think
sure.
there's a lot of companies that would find that valuable. So it's been fun to like mentor people along the way, bring new perspectives, but also I think it allows us to move very quick because I don't necessarily get bogged down on the traditional marketing structure.
Yeah. Um, do you find yourself trying to get caught up at all on like, wait, so explain this to me? Or is it more so that's what you guys are good at? So I
A
trust
little both.
you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's a balance. One, um, I trust that I think I've inherited I inherited a great team. So that is number one, right? And if I had to build this from scratch, that'd be probably a little bit more challenging and we'd probably be having a different conversation. But because I inherited a team that's been doing it a while, and they're very good at what they do, um, I rely on them to teach me, and not because I want that or need that. I like to learn too, and I find things fascinating when it comes to sales and marketing because my whole career is built around that, even though I've never been in this type of role necessarily. So I think learning from them is important, mainly to increase my skill set and expertise. But for the most part, that like I lean on them to run the day to day, right? And yeah, once in a while, I think I steer the ship. But I'm there from a support. So like whether it's roadblocks and kind of where can I plug in to kind of tear down those roadblocks, get over those roadblocks, or what's a blocker? How do I help you with a blocker? Um, those are things that I kind of focus on. And then, I think a lot of it is kind of bringing my revenue expertise and kind of sharing that as well. And so, they'll ask a lot of questions or it's a new way to think about things for them. And so it's kind of like this give and take relationship. It's kind of fun because it does feel more like a partnership on the team. And I think the culture of the team is kind of been able to morph into that, which is we all work together as this partnership and we all have our lanes, right? And I think that's one, it's always been kind of a way I've ran teams and culture, but it truly does fit like that a lot of times, right? Because they are doing things that I don't necessarily understand 100%, and I'm okay
Mhm.
with that, right?
Yeah.
Go do it.
Yeah.
Let's look at the results and make sure it works. But like, go do what you're good at. That's why you're good at
Yep.
it.
Yep. I have no interest in that.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Okay, so has that revenue focus and your background shifted the actual measures of success for the marketing team? So are you know, did you previously have pipeline goals and now you have actual revenue goals, or you had top of funnel goals and now you have pipeline goals? Like, has that, are you adding context to the decisions they're making or actually changing the framework of their decision making?
I mean, it's a little of both, right? So instead of just like being focused on like like from a demand gen, let's just talk about demand gen for a minute. Just instead of like, okay, well, we need to drive this volume and this is what the demand gen looks like. Now it's like, yep. And we're going to expand that to What does that mean to the pipeline? What does that mean to opportunities? And how does that relate to MER? And those, it's just opening those buckets and looking at, instead of saying, like, for me as a revenue or sales leader, it's always been very bad if marketing is doing great and marketing's hitting all these numbers and sales is failing, right? Like something's broken there. And so now it's much more connected system where it's demand gen's performing, but how is that relating to the pipeline? And are we hitting the right ICP and segments in that pipeline? And what is
Mhm.
that doing on the opportunity and the MER side? We need to see the full scope of things because that's really going to indicate how we're successful and how we're not successful. And this is just a piece now of it instead of the whole entire pie.
Okay, awesome. And so now I want to talk a little bit about the audiences you're talking to, because from what I understand, you want to be acquiring new customers and new brokerages and big firms and all that, but you're also tasked with driving adoption among the the agents working for your customers. So how do you think about those two motions together? Do they wind up being one and the same? Because if you talk about how awesome you are for the agents, oh, that's good for sales, that's good for adoption. Or do you have two separate focuses? Is there, oh, it's actually five. Like, talk to me about that
Yeah.
that
It's
breakdown.
messy. It's very messy and it's very
Yeah.
complicated. And yeah, I think I was having this conversation with someone on my team yesterday that like, it is not an easy business. It's very complicated, right? Because of the nature of how big we are and who we serve. And so, yes, our focus is this enterprise or this brokerage, right? And so that brokerage could be 50 agents. It could be Remax with 100,000 agents or 80,000 agents, right? Um, so from a sales aspect and from a marketing aspect or demand gen and how I think about pipeline, it is all about the brokers and large teams.
Hmm.
And kind of so the ideal client for us is really kind of like this 50 all the way up, right? A brokerage of 50 or more, or the enterprise client that has 100 or 150 agents and above. And that's who we kind of serve on the sales side, where I call the new logo side, which is, our demand gen funnel, our pipeline funnels. And so you think about like their needs and what we're trying to solve for that particular person or audience is very different than how it trickles down to the individual agent, right? And
Yeah.
so,
Yep.
like, we're trying to solve brokerage problems, we're trying to solve profitability and margins and recruiting, and how do you bring some of your tech stack together? Like, those are bigger problems that the agent simply
Doesn't care
that's
about.
not what the agent worries about.
Yep. Yep.
But that's one piece of what we do. The other piece of what we do is obviously when people come in the door, our job and really how we support that broker or that team is what works for that broker and what success looks like for that broker is they know that the more agents they have using technology and using the tools, they're going to drive a higher productivity, right? It's like sales 101. So our job then becomes once they come in the door, our job switches to, well, we got to partner up. And most of the time that means we got to lead that initiative to go help the broker drive that adoption. And
Mm,
so then you got to flip your hat and start being a marketer to the individual agent. What works for the individual agent? What does that agent need to focus on? How does that agent need to use the tools? How do they drive more conversations? And so it really does flip. And so we kind of do every that's why like it's not very cut and dry here from a marketing. We have a lot of different personas and a lot of different audience sectors that we have to live in. That's just I think from an agent, broker, and teams, then there's this whole other piece because then think about who that audience's audience is. It's
mhm.
consumer,
Yep.
right? So the other part of our job is I got to make sure our clients look freaking awesome to consumers, right? To make sure they stand out, to make sure that they can drive a value prop to the consumer. Some of our focus has to be on the consumer and are we delivering tools and value to the agent that they can then pass on to the consumer? And so it like you could see it's not easy. It is
Yeah.
very complicated and we kind of have
Yeah.
to be focused in all those buckets.
Yeah. Is that I'm always curious about, like, why is this your ICP? Why 50 agents or more? And then I start thinking about, Well, I bet there are benchmarks or numbers on like, here's the rate of successful activation we need from, the agents of our clients in order for them to be seeing this value or to be, you know, to affect retention or expansion of your clients and all that. So are you are you tracking all of that? Like, do you have a sense of here's how that's translating to value for the agent, here's how that's translating to value for the client, and therefore we get to keep that client or we get to
Yeah,
expand them?
I mean, yeah, it's a lot of KPIs. You look at data and KPIs and engagement and then productivity at the end. And I would say, I think we're really good at, we can sell. Like if you look at all the ICPs, like in our biggest buckets is SMB, mid market, and enterprise. And how we define SMB here is 3 to 50. So you can have a small independent brokerage that just started with 3 people, or you can. And again, our product, BoldTrail, scales all the way up to a Remax size. I will say the reason why I say our ideal client is probably around this 40, 50 mark, even though we have a package for the smallers. It Bull Trail is a lot. I mean, there's a lot to it. It is not just like your typical CRM, and there's 1,000 of them out there, and there's a ton of them for the individual agent that is very simple that I can put my leads into it and it'll keep track of my records. That is not Bold Trail though. Bold Trail is this really all-in-one platform that has all of the front office. So think about websites, marketing tools, um, lead routing, all the things that you would do this this part of the this part of your business, but it also has all the back office stuff. So recruiting, transaction management, commission reports, all of that. And it's connected into one platform. And so that's why I say like our ideal client, yeah, I can serve an independent brokerage that has 10 agents. Um, are they going to be able to take advantage of all the tools and the value? Probably not, right? Like they need to take it in bite size. And so that's why like it ends up being like is 50 agent and more or 40, 50 agent or more. That's really kind of breaks down of if you think about those particular clients and what they're trying to do in the space, Bold Trail can really, really move fast for them and accelerate that. It is really like this, the one thing that holds brokerages back of if you ever did a study in this business to say, why is this brokerage growing and this brokerage isn't? It's because they can't scale. They're stuck. Like they can't scale. Bold Trail can unlock a lot of that for them, right? And so you think about that brokerage that has 40 or 50 agents, what they're trying to do is they're trying to grow market share and they're trying to scale at a very quick rate.
Mhm.
What we find is that when we come in and replace whatever they have, and a lot of times it's not replacing one tool, typically we're replacing 6 to 10 tools, and Bold Trail can replace all of that. And so the scalability and we kind of unlock all this growth for them because all the things that were holding them back, we just erase that for them. And
Mm,
so that's why I say that's kind of our ideal client because that's what you find in kind of that space right there.
awesome. Um, Jack, our time is already up.
Man,
Yeah,
it went by
yeah.
so quick.
Can you believe it? Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap up there. So, listeners, if you enjoyed this episode of Data Planet, subscribe for more conversations with the operators building the systems behind scalable growth. If you want to learn more about Jack, Bold Trail, Inside Real Estate, details will be in the show notes. Jack, thank you so much for joining me today on Data Planet.
I appreciate it, Emma. Thank you.